Einstein said, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its entire life believing it's stupid. Our education system is flawed because of the lack of reaching out to the individual's needs. For the past 24 years, I've been a homeschool teacher and student. In all my years of self-directed education, one of the most cherished discoveries that I've learned is the power of autonomy and that failure is a gift. As Thomas Edison said, I have not failed. I have found 10,000 ways that didn't work. I believe that homeschooling your children supports the development of their own autonomy, leading to higher successful opportunities. Today, I would like to discuss 3 things. Autonomy is self-directed freedom and especially moral independence. Autonomy is important to develop because when you have the power to choose, you also have the motivation to learn new skills. And homeschooling gives you and your children the freedom to learn outside the confines of traditional schooling. I would like to begin with a question. If autonomy is self-directed freedom and especially moral independence, is compulsory public schooling serving our children the way it should? The first wave of compulsory schooling started in the early 1920s, so it's a pretty new experiment. In Philip Hamburger's book, Separation of Church and State, he explains the movement focused on the public sphere of immigrants and the need to Americanize. It had anti-Catholic overtones and found support from groups like the Ku Klux Klan. What are school teachers actually teaching? John Taylor Gatto won numerous awards for his outstanding teaching in his 30 years working in the New York City public school system. He came to the sad conclusion that compulsory public schooling has nothing to do with education, doing little but teach our young people to conform to the economy and social order. In his book, Dumbing Us Down, he talks about the 7 lessons of a school teacher. Here is a summary of those 7 lessons. Number 1, confusion. Everything he teaches is out of context. He teaches the unrelating of everything. He teaches disconnection. He teaches too much. Number 2, class position. He teaches the students must stay in the class where they belong. He shows them how to envy and fear the better classes and how to have contempt for the dumb classes. Number 3, indifference. He teaches children not to care too much about anything. He does it by demanding they become very involved in his lessons, competing vigorously with each other for his favor. But when the bell rings, he insists they drop everything and move on. The lessons of bells is that no work is worth finishing, so why care too deeply about anything? Number 4, emotional dependency. He teaches kids to surrender their will to the predestined chain of command. Individuality is a contradiction of class theory, a curse to all systems of classification. Number 5, intellectual dependency. Let students wait for a teacher to tell them what to do. We must wait for other people better trained than ourselves to make meaning of our lives. Curiosity has no important place in his work, only conformity. Number 6, provisional self-esteem. He teaches that kids' self-respect should depend on expert opinion. The lesson of report cards, grades, and tests is that children should not trust themselves or parents, but should instead trust on the evaluation of certified officials. And finally, number 7, one can't hide. He teaches students that they are always being watched, that each is under constant surveillance by him. He assigns extended schooling in the form of homework so that the effects of surveillance travels into private households. So, why is autonomy important? Autonomy is important to develop because when you have the power to choose, you also have the motivation to learn new skills. Does homeschooling support the development of your children's autonomy? Well, let's look at homeschoolers' adaptability to college. An article published by Chris Weller in 2018 Insider found a 2009 study that showed that homeschoolers who graduated from college was about 67%, while among public school students, it was 59%. Students from private and Catholic schools fell even lower in college graduation rates at 54%. Research suggests Homeschooled children tend to do better on standardized tests, stick around longer in college, and do better once they are enrolled. A Harvard Crimson interviewed many of their homeschool students, and Olivia Sparrow said, "Homeschooling prepared me for Harvard really well because it fostered such a strong love for the act of learning, not learning for the grade, not learning for an exam, but learning for the sheer love of knowledge itself." This brings me to my third and final point. Homeschooling gives you and your children the freedom to learn outside the confines of traditional schooling. So we school year round. I would go as far as to say my homeschool children put in many more hours of learning than a traditional student. It is far more laid back, and it teaches my children how to adapt easier when life changes. There is nothing to fear, and if you feel like you cannot teach your children, you should be asking yourself, why after spending 12 plus years in school, do you feel like you are incapable of teaching your children? An example of developing autonomy is waiting for your child to be ready to learn. So, my son didn't learn how to read until he was 6. Finally, he came to me and he said he was ready to read. He realized if he wanted to be better at his games, he needed to read. He was reading chapter books 3 days later. Why? Because he was relating reading to his life and he desired to learn it. In conclusion, autonomy is self-directed freedom. It may be difficult to measure autonomy, but what we do know is that homeschooled children adapt to college better and have a much higher chance of completing college. We know that homeschooled children have more time to pursue their own interests, explore nature, travel, volunteer in their community, and build relationships with people of all ages because of their power to choose. Homeschooling gives you and your children freedom. So if autonomy is an important core value you want your children to have, I suggest giving your children the power to choose their education by bringing them back home. Join the movement and homeschool your children. Stop wasting time on this government experiments and start raising liberated children with confident autonomy. As Akilah S. Richards says in her podcast, Bear of the Free Child, you can't keep using tools of oppression and expect to raise free people.